Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to this live stream. I have my beautiful brother, the Muslim Lantern, Muhammad Ali. How you doing, bro?
Alhamdulillah, akhi. How are you? How's everything? How's your health?
Alhamdulillah. Good, good. I haven't seen you in a long time. You used to come down to Speaker's Corner, but then you sort of just started focusing on Leicester Square and the street dawah. So, how's the
Yes.
street dawah been? You're out there late at night and conveying
Wallahi,
Islam to people.
alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. I am there as much as I can. I'm not there that much. It's mostly the team. They're there, alhamdulillah, they're putting the effort, they're doing the work. But dawah is going fantastic, mashallah. Like, yani, especially recently, like we've got, yeah, let's say one person accepts Islam a day. That's minimum. We can say the minimum on a rough day, where you don't get that many people, right? Generally, the da'wah is like, subhanAllah, as I tweeted about this before, the demand on Islam is like it's never been before, right?
Yeah,
It's like it's never been before, especially because of the recent years of social media and this and that. Yeah, and subhanAllah, it's fantastic. We're always there in the da'wah as much as we can. The da'wah is needed. We need people. We need materials. We need support. All of that is needed because the da'wah yani, is increasing widely. And you do help with IR and stuff like that. So I know you know as well,
hmm
da'wah, how much is needed, support is needed, etc. That, alhamdulillah.
absolutely.
Even we're
Absolutely.
working with IR a little bit. I don't know if you know or not about the Shahada support and this and that.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
and
yeah, of course.
they're not able to
But
keep up that much, because of the numbers. So
yeah.
subhanallah, what can we do?
Yeah, no, Imran Hussein keeps me updated and that kind of thing. We work in the same office.
Alhamdulillah.
So,
Alhamdulillah.
one thing I like about your channel is that you push out consistent content of interacting with the layman, right?
Mhm.
Interacting with the average person, and it's quite raw and uncut. Like people are walking past, some people are interrupting, some people are having a fun, and this type of thing. And you're out there sometimes interacting with people who, I mean, the best way to describe the spot where you are is it's like the center of London, right? It's where all the tourists come and all the different people come from different backgrounds and stuff. So, what pushes you to keep going consistently and interacting with people?
That was an obligation. I don't think I do it because we have to do it. I don't think we've got a choice, anyways. If we were not there doing this, then we are a part of the people who are sinning. And I genuinely believe that there is a lot of people who are sinning because of this. Because there is, da'wah generally is fard kifaya, which means it's a
Yes.
communal obligation, right?
Yeah.
But it can become a fard ayn on every single individual if there is a need and the need is not being supplied, right? So I think there's not enough people out there, and there has to be enough people out there. And if I'm not out there, then I know that I'm sinning. I'm in a community, and if I know basics, then I should be sharing those basics with the people. Cannot be
Mhm.
just staying home or in dunya, coming here for dunya or not dunya.
Mhm.
But we're here to do the da'wah, and it's an obligation. That's what keeps us out there. Of course, first, it's an
MashaAllah.
obligation. Second, is that the idea is that there's nothing better you could do Islamically.
Absolutely.
يعني ومن
Absolutely.
أحسن
MashaAllah.
قولا ممن, yeah, as Allah Azza wa Jal says, who is better in speech than the one who calls to Allah Azza wa Jal. This is the job of the prophets and the messengers. So
Yes, absolutely.
it's a combination of these two.
Fantastic. And may Allah reward you for the work that you do. And the
I
good
mean,
thing,
I mean,
so you do something that I've been asking a lot of the art to do, but most of them don't do it, which is to actually record the content and put it online. I think the biggest problem that people have who are involved in Dawah is they're actually a lot older, and so they're not up to date with technology. They don't have Discord. They don't have live streaming skills. And mashallah, you're a lot younger than the other du'at, and you have those skills, and you're applying those skills, and people can actually
except Discord.
see.
I don't
It's
use it.
okay, not Discord.
I'm just
Um,
joking. I'm just,
okay,
yes, yes.
so the beautiful thing is that people are
Mhm.
getting that uncut raw look into your
Mhm.
work. So anybody watching this channel, if you're not familiar with the Muslim Lantern Muhammad Ali, please go to his channel, please subscribe. I actually love your stuff, mashallah.
Barakallah
It's
fik.
it's always nice to see you out
Yeah,
there.
like accept.
So what I wanted to do was speak about evolution, because I saw you interacting with the gentleman, and I thought that your approach was refreshing, clear, concise, and it was very articulate. So, mashallah, I want everybody to benefit from the way that you're speaking about the topic. And of course, I love the topic of evolution. I've talked about it for a very long time. So, you have a presentation for us to go through. But before
Okay.
we get into the presentation, what was the conversation like with the gentleman that I'm referring to?
Um, my thing with evolution, whenever evolution is brought up, I generally don't interact with it that much because I think that it is not that important in the dawah. I'll be honest, right? The in the general dawah, the general people, it's not that important because you if you focus on the existence of the creator, etc. Even if you were to say, okay, I accept evolution, can you explain to me where the universe come from? It was before evolution. You still have
Yeah,
to account for this. You still have to explain to me where this came from. Once I can convince you there's a creator, then it'll be easier to convince you there's a messenger of God and it has to be a religion. One of those religions have to be true. And if I can establish the religion is true, then we know the whole idea about science, whether it's idea of science being actually giving you facts or not giving you facts, and all of this story, right? So I don't even need to go into much detail there. So I go into the basics first, right?
yeah,
But when do I go into evolution? When I find the person persisting on mentioning evolution too much, right? So I'm talking about this, he goes to evolution. I talk about things that has nothing to do with evolution, and he brings up evolution, thinking that look, evolution is to do with the evolution. He says evolution of the universe. I say, bro, why are you talking about? So people are mixing everything when it comes to the theory of evolution. That's the unfortunate reality,
yeah, yeah,
and which is what I want to establish here is that the information that is being put forward as evidence, quote unquote, for evolution, it is the same recycled evidence that they've been recycling for years and years and years, even though they have been refuted. And that's
absolutely.
the issue. And the layman comes to you with those evidences. What happens when you speak to someone who's a little bit sophisticated? What he claims is, oh no, we already moved on from that. What they try
Yeah,
to claim. But the reality is, if you go to this is what I'm going to demonstrate. I don't want to go into too much. I'm going to demonstrate in this kind of slides, right? But
yeah,
point is simply with evolution. Uh, what I try to show is that the person believes in evolution. Person I talk to, the layman, he
yeah,
believes in evolution without knowing a single idea about what evolution actually means
yeah.
or
They've
what
been
are the assumptions.
socialized. Yep.
Exactly. And in the end, I would say 95% of them agree. They've been
Yeah.
socialized into believing in something that they cannot demonstrate or even know the basics about, let alone actually demonstrate its truth, but let alone know the basics about. So this is usually my goal. Ignore evolution because it's not that important. If we get into evolution, right, then actually try to show that that person he believes in it without any evidence, right? Argument from authority. Oh, the scientists believe it, therefore I believe it, right?
Yeah.
And all of these fallacies. This is generally what we get.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a concise way of actually putting it. And I'm glad you noted that most of these people are socialized into this.
Absolutely.
They don't actually question it. They can't articulate it. The other thing which you said, which was quite interesting, is about how many of these examples are really poor and they've been recycled for the last 100 or so years. And when you do find the people who are more sophisticated actually saying, well, we have something better, we've moved on, they don't give you anything better than the recycled arguments. It's just the newer versions of those same types of things. But the question I want to ask you, Muhammad, is this: that if you lose trust in someone, right? If you lose trust in a particular group of people telling you something, then it doesn't matter what they tell you later on because of their past behavior. So, for example,
Exactly.
when it comes to a man who is deceiving his livestock to say that he's going to feed them, but he doesn't actually feed them, he just uses that, the incentive of food to try and bring them into his farmhouse. In Islam, we wouldn't actually uh, you know take knowledge from that person in terms of that person as an authority. We would question because of the way that they are. So when we have the isnad system, we look at the study of men, we look at their characteristics and whether these people are trustworthy. We've seen time and time again that these Darwinists have been hoodwinking people, have been putting together speculative things, have been lying through a mission. So time and time again these things have come up, and the general perception of anybody who looks into the field like myself or you is that these people are simply not trustworthy. We just simply cannot accept what they're saying based upon their past behavior.
I would say, subhanAllah, what you're doing is a beautiful introduction of what we're gonna get into, right? Because this is, as you maybe have seen from my video, this is a core argument. This is the core idea, right? Prophet ﷺ, he said, Al-mu'min al-kayyis al-fatin. The mu'min is a kayyis, fatin, he's wise. He notices when there is a problem, right? He fixes a solution. He's not an idiot. And the Prophet
Okay.
ﷺ said, لا يلدغ المؤمن
Yeah.
من جحره مرتين, right? Believer is not stung from the same hole twice. You cannot be an idiot if someone says to you, look, you have evidence the person is repeatedly, not just once or twice, we can demonstrate, right? But repeatedly and continuously lying to you,
Yeah.
repeatedly and continuously fabricating, repeatedly and continuously covering up. If this is the case with a specific individual, then it doesn't matter what he comes up with in the future, as you said. So we've
Yeah.
established already the idea that you're a liar. And based on you being a liar, so we're not concerned with what you're going to bring in the future. Simple as that.
Absolutely.
And I think that's the best thing to demonstrate. Like, other than that, we're going to go into circles. And I want to go into it in depth when we go into it. I don't want
Bismillah.
to go into it now, inshallah. Okay.
Sure. Shall I share the
Okay.
presentation and get
Yeah,
started?
that's fine. That's
All right.
fine, inshallah.
Bismillah.
Okay. So the theory of evolution, fact or fiction. And I want to say something important here, right? What is a fact? Right? Something that we need to keep in mind, right? Now, let's leave the definitions of philosophical definition, jargon, and all of this nonsense. We're not going to get into that. Generally, when someone says something is a fact, they say that there is no doubt in that thing. There is no doubt in it. We agree on it. It's a fact that water is wet. We're not going to get someone in the future who's going to come and disagree that, what, no, water. I'm not sure really that water is wet, but no, it could be wet sometimes and sometimes it cannot be wet. Fact is a fact. So what happens is, in the scientific community, what they do is that they sell you evolution as a fact. There's no doubt about that. You go to universities, if you study in university, study anything related to biology, it's already a fact. People believe evolution is a fact, right? So what I'm going to try to demonstrate now, is it really fact, or is it the opposite of fact? Is it fiction, right? And I want to say something important, right? There are a group of people, just before we get started, I want to make 2 points, right? First thing is that there are people who've already made up their minds. If you made up your mind, if you were willing to actually open your mind and to listen and to see what this person is going to present to me, then this kind of stream, I would say, is for you. If you already closed up your mind, it doesn't matter what this guy is going to say. It doesn't matter what he's going to bring up. I'm not going to accept what he says. He doesn't know what he's talking about. Look at this Arab trying to tell me this and that, right? If you already made up your mind, then this stream is not for you. So I'm making it clear and simple for the people. I want people are watching 2 minutes and then go on the comments, oh, about this and this and that. Watch the full thing. Once you watch the full thing, then say what you want to say. The second thing I want to say is that what we need to do as Muslims is very important here. We cannot be on the back foot. We cannot be on the back foot when it comes to evolution. What do I mean by that? Evolution is not our claim. Why are we trying to disprove something which is not our claim to begin with? I'm saying from the beginning, if you're moving from this perspective, you've kind of already lost. What you need to do is to ask that other individual to demonstrate to you why this is a fact. If I'm talking to someone who believes in evolution, like other than what we're going to do today, if I'm generally talking to someone who believes in evolution, the onus of the claim is on him. He's supposed to demonstrate to me evidences why evolution is true. But what tends to happen, what tends to happen in our conversations, we assume, okay. He said, we assume evolution is true, even though we don't agree it is. And then we start defending why we don't believe in evolution. No. You see, that's the biggest problem that we have today, right? We need to understand, look, the other person needs to come and give me the evidence, can demonstrate evidence to me in front of my eyes. Look, this is the evidence why evolution is true. And then I can maybe think about, okay, refuting the evidences that he's bringing forward, critiquing it, and this and that. It's like me starting a conversation with an atheist and then him accepting the assumption, according to his worldview, that God exists, and then I ask him, disprove God. Would any atheist ever accept that? No. So why are we doing that?
That's a good example. That's a very good example.
Yeah, subhanAllah. Yeah. So why are we doing that? You want to say something? Yeah.
No. Exactly what you said. I love the way that you put it. If a Christian comes up to me and they ask, sorry, not Christian, sorry, a Darwinist comes up to me and they want to put the onus on me, I'm going to say, no, the onus is on you. You're the one that made the claim. I'm the one who's silent. You're the one that's claiming there is a universal common ancestor. It was a blind random process. So what you did right now, I think, will give a lot of people confidence, because they know that they can just sit there, fold their arms, and they need to wait for the other side to give the presenting case. And all they need to do is challenge.
Absolutely. And this is what I'm saying. This is what we need to do from now onwards. We cannot be those people who are like, okay, evolution is true. Let me try to explain. You're already defeated, man. What are you trying to do? You're already defeated. Like subhanallah, defeated in a battle that we never started anyways. Sometimes I do that with the existence of God, but that's a different discussion for a different day, you know. But generally,
Yeah.
this is the idea. The person he's got to demonstrate to us why evolution is true. Now let's move on inshallah to what we're going to talk about today. Okay,
Right.
so we've got what we call quote unquote evidence, right? So I'm putting it in quotation marks for a very important reason, right? This is what people in the Darwinian field will present to you as evidence. I don't know if there's anything else that we can consider to be evidence anyways, but let's say this is the bulk of what is considered to be evidence. This is the main topics. This is the most important things. Obviously, fossil record, vestigial organs. We'll go into what vestigial organs are if someone doesn't know. Homology, and obviously the natural selection is the blind processes that happen based on your environment for survival and reproduction, etc. We've got random mutations. The mutations happen randomly and all of the story. And then we've got similarities in genes, humans and chimpanzees and different animals with each other and all of that, right? Then lastly, we're going to talk about some rational problems that we have with the theory of evolution as a theory, right? And I'm going to go into an important thing later on, what I mean by the rational problems, okay? Let's go on to the first thing, inshallah. Okay, so the important thing is this. Darwin, when he put his theory, in chapter 6 of his book, obviously here, Origin of Species, chapter 6, difficulties in the theory, right? He put this chapter about the problems and difficulties that can come up with his theory, etc. And he said something interesting here. He said that as this theory, innumerable transitional forms must have existed. He put forward this thing, which every evolutionist comes up to us with as well. I will explain why they come up to us with this idea. They say that, look, there's thousands of creatures, there's thousands of animals, thousands of things which have evolved on a long, gradual period of time and gradual process that took billions and millions of years. Why is this important now? Because the people who will deny this today, based on certain individuals, they still, when we ask them, can you show us a transitional creature today that have evolved? They always use this excuse of gradualism. So when it suits them, they say, oh, this takes thousands and thousands and thousands and millions of years. But when it doesn't suit them, they say, oh, yeah, we don't have to believe it took it's a long process. And I need you guys to pay very close attention to, because you will see in everything that they present, there's a contradiction. They self-contradict themselves literally in every action that they do. Okay. So Darwin here, he said that we need to have this massive amount of fossils of transitional creatures that whenever we get, you see here is different levels here. Obviously, you've got the Cambrian, etc. All of these are different levels in the soil. And because it was a gradual process, then when we go in the first one, we will see the latest creatures that have evolved. When you go deeper and deeper and deeper, you'll find now less evolved creatures the more you go deep. So this is what the theory is. This is a general understanding of how the fossil record works, right? So Darwin himself knew that we're not finding all of these transitional forms. So he continued to say, after saying that they must exist, so he is making the claim, not us. He's saying that they must exist based on the idea of gradualism and slow evolution, etc. Then he says, why do we not find them embedded in countless numbers in the crust of the earth? He's asking the question on our behalf, right? We don't need to ask the question. He's asking. Now, how did he answer the question? It is hilarious how he answered the question. He said, I'm going to talk about that. It will be more convenient to discuss this question in the chapter on the imperfection of the fossil record, basically. He made a chapter, he said, the fossil record is not perfect. How does that justify what your theory or anything that you said? That has nothing to justify your theory. That cannot amount to the claim that you guys make. There is an innumerable amount of transitional forms and creatures. We need to find them. They have to be. When we finding all of these creatures, we need to be finding all of these fossils that lead us, for a fact, the evolution took place. Why are we not finding them? Right? Then we had what we call a very interesting thing that brought even more problems on this idea, which is the idea of the Cambrian explosion. Right? So we've got this layer here, Precambrian and then Cambrian. We've got something called the Cambrian explosion. We found so many fossils from that period, and all of these fossils, they do not support the idea of gradualism, and that creatures took all of this time to evolve and this and that. We found all of these creatures. So we find this trilobite. I don't know how you say it even. Trilobite. Trilobite. Sorry. Thank you. So this trilobite is an example that we found from the Cambrian period, right? This is a very advanced creature with multiple different eyes, and it has nothing to do with the idea that this gradually evolved and took this very, very, very long. We shouldn't be finding it in the Cambrian period. right? We should be finding it maybe in the Tertiary period or all one of these different periods, but it should not be in the Cambrian period. This is one example. We find multiple different fossils, and what this did is it completely destroyed this idea of gradualism. So they started to us with this idea of gradualism. Now, no longer we can accept this idea of gradualism. They had to find a solution. How can we find deep within the earth in that very long period? How can we find this these extremely evolved quote unquote creatures? How can we explain this phenomena? How can we account for that? Then what we find? We find someone like Stephen Jay Gould. I don't need to say who he is. I'm sure he's very well known, right? On his book, sorry, let's go back. On his book, The Panda's Thumb, right? What he says is, it is sudden appearance of species. Okay, can you explain? Yeah. Can you explain why? Can you explain how? Can you explain? So what they started saying is that, you know what? It's not that all of these things have evolved, because we found different things like ants, for example, that have not evolved, and all of that, right? All of these different fossils from the Cambrian period, there's no explanations for them. So what they did is that they shifted the goalpost. They said, you know what? Some creatures, they will have sudden appearance, sudden evolution, quick sudden evolution, while the other ones will take a gradual and transitional period without giving any justifications. What is the justification? Yeah. We found something that goes against our theory. Now we're going to shift and twist and change what we were saying into trying to fit this new information into our theory. Okay? But this has a lot of problems. So as we said, they're not giving us why. Not giving us reasons and evidence behind them, given this idea that, okay, some of them are like this and some of them are like that. The second thing is how. How would an animal or a thing evolve very quickly, suddenly, by itself, by random processes? How does that happen? So you were given the excuse. This is a big issue now, right? Because they were given the excuse of natural selection. This happens in a long period of time based on the environment and this and that. So how can you account for this very sudden, perfect evolution, if you want to use that term, that happens at a certain time suddenly? How can you account for that? How can you explain that? And what we would say is it's impossible to explain. For example, animals like giraffes. Right? What they said is that they didn't have that long neck. They were trying to eat from the trees. So they were extending their neck, extending, and through a gradual process, their neck started like stretching. You know how ridiculous these things happen when you start to actually listen to their claims, right? And then it started to stretch until it started reaching the leaves and started eating from the food. Now, what is the problem there? Is if we assume sudden evolution, are you trying to say to me that the blood vessels, the bones, tissues, the heart, everything related to blood evolved suddenly all together in the perfect manner that the giraffe is not going to die? Let alone now to go to speak about the breathing system of the giraffe and all of these things. If there is a sudden evolution that took place, how can that happen that all of these organs and everything in the body changes in the perfect way, in the perfect time for that creature to survive without any external factors? Now, that's a claim I want to ask Stephen Jay Gould if he was here. I would ask you that question. Can you account for how it is possible for an animal like a giraffe, which has all of these massive changes? If you looked at the blood system for a giraffe, how the blood goes from the heart to the brain in all of this long neck, you'll be shocked. Are you telling me that, just random chances? Okay, this is the first thing that we want to talk about, okay? Let's move on. So the first thing we said is the Cambrian explosion. So what we said here in the Cambrian explosion is that they did not found those species. With the testimony of someone like Darwin and other people, they did not found those transitional creatures. If they did find them, we wouldn't have anything to contest anyways, right? We would say, okay, then you've got all of these different fossils. Okay, that makes sense. Okay, now we'll look into what you guys are saying. Okay, but they don't have it. So what did they do? If we don't have something, what do we do? Like the Christians do, some Christians, they make it up. So if I don't have a verse in the Bible that supports the Trinity, we will make up a verse that supports the Trinity. It's the same idea with science. We don't have evidence for this idea. What we will do is that we will make up evidence for this idea. So let's go on to look at some of the links in what I would call, right, clear-cut forgeries with their own testimony. And I want to say something very important. Look, all the magazines that I'm going to put forward here are magazines that actually support evolution. What does it mean? They accept evolution to be a fact. They are well accepted scientific magazines in the scientific community. I'm not going to bring you creationists, quote unquote. I'm not going to bring you books of people who already deny evolution. I'm going to bring you their own testimonies about their own things. So if you're an atheist that accept the scientific community, or you're a Muslim that you want to say what they say themselves about their own theory, we'll go on to look one by one. So let me open the first link, inshallah. Just give me 1 second, and then let me share my screen. Okay, so and I'm gonna go quickly because I'm not gonna go into much details. You can go later on. You can guys look at the links and go into much details of each single fossil and why it's a forgery, right? So let me share screen for 1 second here. Share screen. Okay. So this is the first forgery here. Okay. Okay. This fossil that was announced as the missing link as possible evidence is what? Is a forgery. Okay, that's the first link. Let's go on to the next link. Okay, let me stop sharing my screen and let me share another link. Okay, I don't want to go on too much into these different, because I have so many, honestly, right? So many examples, right? Okay, reject all. Build them infamous what? Build down man, infamous fake fossil. Okay, and all of these things that they talk about here, they were using as evidences. If you open the scientific textbooks, you will find these things to quote unquote claim to be evidences for evolution, right?
Yeah.
Okay, let's go to a third link. So we're going to talk about even Lucy a little bit more in details as well, but let's talk about Lucy quickly now. Lucy. Okay. Okay, so I don't know. There's always these cookies everywhere, you know. Okay, so baboon found in famous Lucy skeleton, right? If anyone knows about the Lucy skeleton, we're going to talk about it in depth as well. Baboon bones are found in it. Baboon bones are found in it, right? Okay. Now, coming back to the slides. Let's come back to the slides for a second.
Yep.
Okay, so all of these are articles saying the same thing. So I'm going to save you the time, right? I'm going to save you the time. Some of the look, why the fossil is not the missing link. You can find even in the link of the thing. Say some statements about these things, right? So all of these are talking about the same thing. All of it are forgeries, right? We had an example of here, Science magazine, claiming that there was a specific thing. In the end, it's a pig tooth. They draw an actual creature, a whole creature, you know, based on one tooth. They drew an actual creature, saying that creature was called X, Y, and Z. He was walking and going around here. He's doing X, Y, and Z. And in the end, oh, sorry, we discovered it's a pig tooth, right? Let me actually open that link. Let me open that link for a second. So it is like, honestly, like embarrassing. That's what I would say. Okay. And the point is, what those people do, when we find their mistakes, they try to even justify it in a different way. Like, for example, look, you say, apparently not a man or ape, but you're claiming it is a man or ape, and it is a missing link and all of that. So what happened now? What happened now, right? Okay, let's come back. Let's open the slides again. Sorry.
Yep.
Okay, this is another example here, right? There was a part of a skull that they found, right? And they drew a whole picture again and all of that, and they said that these are transitional creatures, etc. In the end, there was a skull of a donkey, right? By the way, the time that and there was even books mocking that, magazines putting a man holding a stick and with a donkey head, right? Mocking the scientific creators, claiming that this was a transitional creatures between a human being, etc. Right? So it's a skull of a donkey, right? And they called it the discovery of the century at that time, which shows how these people use all of these false evidences to try to justify as if they have evidences for what they say, when in reality they got nothing supporting what they say, right? We've got Haeckel's drawings, right? If you speak to someone today, as I said to you, someone who a little bit learned about evolution and this and that, if you talk to him about Haeckel's drawing, all he's going to say to you, oh, this is a long time ago, disputed, and this. That's what they say. But these are used in medical textbooks. Until 2013. This link I have, it's showing you how many textbooks it is used in. Up to 2013, even though this idea was refuted in 1909. So, Darwin's time, So this idea was refuted at Darwin's time to be forgeries, but they're still using today in scientific textbooks and medical textbooks until 2013. Are you now coming saying to me that they did not know this basic information that me, someone who's not specialized in the medical field, knows? So I know that this is a forgery, but the people who are doctors, professors that are writing books, medical fields, professors teaching students, they don't know that this is a forgery, and they still have it in their medical textbooks, or is it that they know but they don't care, or is it that they know this is fake but they don't care and they want to push forward whatever they believe in? This is the other idea that we had of the human tail, right? Say humans are born with tails, and these tails used to be from apes and from all of these different types of animals, and in the end it is a disease called lipoma, and there's many different names for that specific disease. It's skin disease where you have an extra part of the skin coming out, right?
Yeah.
So what is it that I'm trying to show here is when they do not have evidence for something, because they worship this thing as a religion. That's why I compare them with Christianity. They worship it to be a religion, and their idea and their understanding, this is like a religion. So if I don't have evidence for something that I already believe in, then I will make up evidence to support what I believe in. Okay?
Yeah.
And I'll try to inshallah, comment with my channel, put all of these links. There's so many links there. So I'll try to gather all of these links for the people, one by one, and then people can look at if they want to look at it, inshallah. Okay? We've got, now moving on to what I would call fictional characters. But first I want to ask this question. Maybe you can tell me, maybe if you know this common knowledge, right? Do you know when they say is the first appearance of Homo sapiens? How long ago? Do you know?
Well, our species, they would say around 200,000 years.
200,000 years, right? 195, 5 give or take, which is what you just said. So this is what they say. Okay, so this is the common knowledge, Brother Sabur. This is what people are spreading. This is if you go to a person, this is what they will say to you. But we'll move on now to talk about this a bit. Okay, what I'm going to say also, I'm calling them fictional characters, but not now. So Nature magazine research is what you said here, right?
Yeah.
Earliest appearance is 195, give or take 5 years. It's in this article by Nature, right? Now we have a next article here by Nature. Actually, let me open this article. Now we have a next article that I want to look at here, right? So let me share my screen. Sorry, apologize. Okay, share screen. So we said what? 200.
Yeah.
Now they found one that is 300,000 years. Yeah.
Yeah. And
300,000 years ago. Now what do they say? Moroccan fossil rearranges Homo sapiens tree. So what they found, by the way, this 200 years that they had. Let me close this for a second. This 200 years gap that they had. This 200 years that they have the whole family tree based on it. So now we have to understand the significances of these changes that I'm putting forward now. It's not as simple as, okay, yeah, it was 200, it's going to be 300. No. The whole theory is based on that, right? The whole evolution of the human is based on that, because they have this gradualism, they have this periods. This person was in this specific period of time. This animal transitioned from here to there. It gradually evolved in this specific way. So it's not just simple changes. This has to rearrange the whole family tree. Okay, so they said 300,000 years. Let's move on to the next thing that they say. Okay, let me share my screen. So it's not 300,000 years. Actually, it's, according to this, is the first Europeans remains in Spain. It is actually 780,000 years. Okay, so what do we have to do now? More rearranging. What do you have to do? We have to rearrange again, right?
It's musical chairs.
Yeah, it's musical chairs. Yeah? This chair doesn't fit here. Let's put another chair, right? Okay, let me show another example, right? Okay, another example. And people don't talk about these things because they only talk about the 200 years. This is what they teach in universities. This is what they talk to students about. This is the old information that they still recycling until today, right? Okay, let's share screen again. Another face. Look how they're putting it. Look how they try to beautify it. Another face in our family tree. Actually, it's dated to 3.5 million years ago. So it's just another face in our family tree. Okay, they're trying to put it in a way as if, there is no issues in that. We don't have a problem. Okay, we were just telling you this, and the reality is not this. But okay, let's do another one. Okay, because I want to read a little bit of what it says here as well. Share screen. Okay. The oldest member of the human family found. Voila. Okay. You know. Now let's look. Tumai is the tip of the iceberg. On that could sink our current ideas about human evolution. It's not me saying that. It's the guy who found it. Okay. So I think that says wood. Yeah. It's not me. I'm not saying that. Anybody who thinks this isn't going to get more complex isn't learning from history, right?
Yeah.
When I went to medical school in 1963, human evolution looked like a ladder. He says the ladder stopped from monkey to man through a progression of intermediates, each slightly less ape-like. Now, human evolution looks like a bush. Okay, we have a mingling of fossil hominids, the group. Okay, so what is he trying to say here? What is he trying to say? He's trying to say, okay, we had when I went to university, we had this family tree. Now, because of all of these things that people are trying to avoid, because as he says, that you cannot avoid this, you cannot escape this. Don't think this is not an issue. This is what he's saying. Someone who believes in evolution, who's propagating evolution, he himself is telling you this is an issue. He himself is telling you this is rearranging all of what we had. As you said, musical chairs, rearranging everything. So first, we found a problem with the idea of the fossil record. They make it up. They have any idea which is a contradiction. They change the premises. They change whatever they used to believe in into something completely different, and they claim as if, oh, there is no issues, right? Now, this is another example of Nature magazine, 1.8 million. We found a human hand bone, right? 1.8 million. So it's not 200 years. It's not 300. It's not 780. It's not 3.5. It's not 6.7, right? And also in Asia, because some of them are saying all of these bones are found in Africa. No, there is an Asia. There is a Chinese bone that is found that is also older. That is in the link that I put forward, okay? So what we have here is fictional stories of fictional trees, of fictional transitional creatures in fictional times that they put forward to the people, and they start drawing and they start rearranging for you one by one, telling you that, look, this is now the tree of the human family. I think the tree of Pokemons have been rearranged less than this. This is how I would say. This has been rearranged more than these people rearrange. Okay, let's move on to the next fictional characters. Right. So we have here fictional characters. I'm not gonna even bother to read the first name. Yeah? That's why they called it Lucy. They changed the name from that name to Lucy, right? So those are the four main ones that they use today. They moved away from most of the other ones, and now they focus on those four main ones: Homo habilis, Homo erectus, Homo neanderthalensis, and Lucy, right? So Lucy, here there is an article from Science Daily. It says that it has an ape-like brain, and the rest of the bones that they have, they actually collected from different things. So collecting a bone from here, a bone from there, a bone from different country, and then assembling them together to try to have a human looking like creature that evolved from something. Today you can do that. You can bring a little head of a monkey and a hand of a human being and a tail of a rat, and then gather them together and say that this was a creature that was evolving, right? So they themselves, they say, actually, no, that's not from Homo sapien tree. That's actually, it has an ape-like brain. Okay, we move to the Homo habilis. It's the same thing, ape-like bones, right? We move on to the Homo erectus It's the same thing. There's a link here that talks about sinking the Homo erectus. It's a whole research showing you how the Homo erectus is sinking. Because it's from erect, right? Erecting. So they're even making puns about it. They're even mocking their own evidences, right? So he's thinking there is no evidence for the Homo erectus as people are claiming, right? And here in this Nature article, it says it could be from Homo sapiens. Actually, it could be included in Homo sapiens tree. It's not really it's not really Homo erectus. It's actually from the tree of the Homo sapiens, right? You look at another research. Actually, let's open this last one, life science. Let me open this one. Can look at it for a second, okay? Because I want to read some of the phrases that they have in there. Let's look at this, okay? And I want everyone to bear with me, by the way. I know, look, I'm going to present to you a lot of things, but the point I want to do is this, is I don't want to leave anyone excuses later on, coming and saying, okay, but what about this, but what about that? I'm going to give you a crazy amount of forgeries, a crazy amount of lies, a crazy amount of what they claim to be the evidence, how they themselves admit that it's not evidence for anything, and they still come to you trying to convince you that this is some sort of a accepted fact. Okay, let's look here, sharing this one. Okay, Homo erectus, facts about the upright man. Yeah, let's look about the facts that they say. No, thank you. Okay, and I want to say something important here. Let me see the part I want to talk about. Okay. Bird on mother only for 200 years homeworks up had longer range. Oh yeah. What I wanted to say is this. Do you see this part called lineage? Yeah.
Yeah.
I opened the same link a while ago. This part here called lineage was in the beginning. But what they did is they took this part and they changed it with this. I'll tell you why, because you're going to start reading now what it says, right? Why did they remove it from the beginning of the research? Because they don't want people to be reading this in the beginning, right? The lineage of evolutionary history of Homo erectus and other Homo sapiens is unclear, and it has been muddied further by recent finds. Okay? Homo erectus was once thought to have evolved from an earlier human ancestor known as the Homo habilis, somewhere in East Africa is the start to it. Okay, false information. However, there is much disagreement about whether these populations are actually Homo erectus. Confusing matters more. After analyzing the new skull, okay, scientists also do not agree about Homo erectus directed. I can go on and on and on, right? Point is, they don't want that to be in the first page, because if that is in the first page, what you see is just further confusion upon further confusion.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's close this page. Let's go back to the research. And I'm sure, look, people have heard these names.
Yeah.
This is what atheists come up with, talking to you about. They assume they existed. I've seen you talking to maybe an atheist who believes in evolution. He starts mentioning these names to you as if they're facts. Right or wrong? He says to you, they've done that, and they've actually done that. Okay, but this is what your Nature magazines are saying.
Yeah.
This is what your own research is saying. Okay? Now, the Homo, I'm not going to even mention the name. I'm not going to bother, right? The last one. This is called the demise of that, whatever that species is called. It's the demise of it. It's the research here showing how it is demise. It is 151 research reviewed, put in that research that I'm putting for you, showing you how it is the demise now of this idea of the existence of the Homo neanderthals, etc., whatever they're called. Right? Point is this. If you go to any university today, they are teaching you these things are facts.
Yeah.
They're not teaching you that these things are contested. They're confusing. They're actually, these are not bones of humans. They're actually bones of apes. They're not actually what we used to say to you. It's not actually true. All of these fictional drawings and movies that they make, literally movies, right? There's a movie about Lucy, the baboon skin now. There's a whole movie about it, right? Showing you how she used to live and what she used to do. And all of that is coming from an ape brain. Do you get what I'm trying to say? And a collection of different fossils from different animals, from different things. Now, these fictional characters, why am I calling them fictional characters? Because they literally are. Imagine constructing a full character from a tooth that later on you found out it's a pig tooth, and you have this fictional character come. Even children, they have less imagination than this. To be honest, even DC movies and all that, they are more plausible than these things that they're putting forward. To be honest, they are more plausible. Okay, let's move on. Now we have something called vestigial organs. What is vestigial organs? Vestigial organs, and I want to say something important here. Vestigial organs is the claim that there are organs that are useless. They're not useful for survival and reproduction. They're not useful for that animal because they're left over of a previous ancestor. Like, for example, if I had a tail, for example, yeah, this useless tail is not helping me survival and reproduction, but actually it's coming from previous ancestors. That's why it's still there. So that is the claim. Now, the first thing I want to put forward, and it's a very important thing to look at when it comes to this idea of vestigial organ, it is based on circular reasoning. Why is it based on circular reasoning? Now, that's very important to look at now. Because they claim these organs are vestigial, they're useless. Why? Because evolution is true. And evolution says that all organs must be used for survival and reproduction. Because evolution is true, they're vestigial organ. And because they're vestigial organ, they're evidence that evolution is true. now, I want you to look at this circular. People don't think about that, but this is circular reasoning, literally.
Yeah.
Do you understand? Yeah. They say vestigial organs are evidence for evolution. I'm not making this claim. Yeah. They make this claim. Let's read it here. Why evolution is true, right? By Jerry A. Coyne, right? He has on page 60. What does he say? He says, we humans have vestigial features proving that we evolved. The most famous is the appendix, right? Which, by the way, I just put a research from 2018 showing how it is very useful. In fact, there is a research under it saying how appendix could save your life. How it actually saves you from certain diseases that will kill you. But the point is that this is circular reasoning. They're claiming they're vestigial because evolution is true, and they're vestigial, therefore they're proving evolution is true. How are we not challenging this nonsense? How are we allowing this nonsense to go by? Okay. So that's the first thing I want to say. This is circular reasoning, okay? Now, the claims that they make is also lies. Like the appendix, for example, is a claim. Another claim is the inverted retina in the eye, which is very sophisticated, very useful, and I'm putting the research here, showing you how it is super useful for the human eye. And then you got someone like Richard Dawkins in his book, The Blind Watchmakers, claiming it's useless and it's evidence for evolution because it's a vestigial organ, according to him. Okay, you've got the whale pelvic bones, and I want to say something very important. We've got research that link that I put. We've got research 150 years ago, brother Sabur, saying that they are useful for mating. And then we have a book today, Biology by Ravens and Johnson, taught in universities. 2017 edition still has the information. Now, my question is, can you please tell me? I already mentioned one example like this, right? But can you please tell me, have they missed a research that been done? Even that research I'm putting now that is recent, they're quoting that research from 1,500 years, 150 years ago. Are you telling me those professors in universities are supposed to be editing these books, teaching them to students? They do not know that there is 150 years ago research showing how these pelvic bones are actually used for mating for the whales. Therefore, they're no longer, as they claim, vestigial organs. 2017, this book is being taught in universities. Okay, and you've got someone like Richard Dawkins. He's claiming, oh, look, this is evidence for evolution. You got Stephen Jay Gould. He's saying the same thing. All the people that you see, you hear the biggest names propagating evolution. If you open their books, these are the things they're using. Brothers and sisters, I'm not bringing you something from last century. Yeah, I'm bringing you what they write in their books, claiming this is evidence for evolution. And I'm bringing you their own magazines showing you how these quote-unquote evidences are actually not evidences, and how they're lying, ignoring research 150 years ago completely as if it doesn't exist. Completely. Now, look, let me open this link to show you an example of what they say. Let me show and open one more link. Sorry. Okay, let me get to where I stopped. Okay, let's open this link here. So many links to open for you guys, but I don't want to keep this, for thousands and thousands of views. And by the way, I want to be honest. This is not an in-depth research that I put forward. By the way, I organized this because Brother Sabur recently he just told me that he wants me to come on. I literally organized all of this today. A few hours, I put everything together. If you really want me to put an in-depth research of the amount of lies that these people put forward, I can do that. But wallahi, this is just few hours today. Wallahi, I done this today. I can go into the dates, showing you me putting all of this information today. This is not an in-depth research, brothers. This is a basic surface level showing you how these people are lying. Okay. Let's go here and share this link. Let me show you one thing here. Interesting. I want to show you what they're saying. Okay. What they say, where reproduction is all in the hips. New study. Look, that we said 150 years ago there is information about this. New study that turns a long accepted evolutionary assumption on its head. That's what they're saying, brothers and sisters. This is not what I'm saying. This is what they're saying in their magazines. It's saying that it's turning this evolutionary assumption. While 150 years ago, I'm telling you, this information has been already, people have been sleeping and they know this information, The actual professors, they know this nonsense, okay? Now, we've got another example of snakes, pythons. You got a book, Essentials of Biology. Again, taught in universities. 2018 edition. There's a research 50 years ago already showing how the hand, what they call the hand limbs, are actually hooks used for fighting and mating by the pythons. While they will claim to you today, in 2018, in their books, in what you learn in university, probably some people watching this, they might be learning in the university. Yeah, I want you to open your textbooks that you're learning from, and you go to the page of vestigial organs, and you will see these things I'm telling you about in these books. Yeah, 2018. 50 years ago, there is a research debunk. 40 years ago, there is a research debunking that, but they're still lying in 2018 in their books, claiming that, you know what, this is evidence, this is vestigial organs. You've got penguin wings, you've got the ostrich wings. I can go on and on and on, right? Point is, as I said, I just collected some of them. I don't want to go into extensive detail. Point is, anything that they would claim to you is vestigial organs. There is a function for it, and there is research demonstrating that there is a function for it, but they will lie and they will still claim it's evidence, like I just showed you, Jerry Coyne in his book, Evolution is True. Claiming to you the famous, he says the most famous is the appendix. He's claiming it's the famous that people are sharing that the appendix is useless. And we've already got research showing you that it can save your life, So by their own nature, magazines, okay? Let's move on. Okay, now we've got something here called homology, right? Maybe some people heard about homology or not, but okay, what is the idea of homology? Homology is the idea that the similarities between creatures in anatomy are due to common descent. Okay, Is this my claim? No, no, no. I'm bringing you what they say in their books. Okay, Essentials of Biology, 2018 edition, page 247. They say the unity of anatomy is evidence of common ancestor. I'm not saying that. They're saying that in their books, right? And they say here homologous structures suggest common derivation, right? So they're claiming that. Biology by Ravens and Johnson, Essentials of Biology by 2018. This is recent things. I'm not claiming something from the last century. Yeah, okay. So that means what? The more similar the creatures are, the closer they are in relation. Am I correct in my understanding, brother Sabur? Doesn't that mean the closer they are in the looks based on this information? You're muted, by the way, if you want to say something. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, I was muted. You were in a flow, and I didn't want to stop you, but
Yeah, no problem.
because when you get going.
Absolutely, absolutely. I appreciate that a lot.
I mean, what you're saying so far is the concisest way to explain these points, because the deeper you get, it can actually get more confusing. But that's the crux of it, what you just explained.
Okay, khair inshallah. Okay, let's move on to the next point. Okay. Okay, so here what do we have? Can you spell these two, because it's easier for me to say Mashimiyat and Jirobiyat. You can spell the two on the top.
Yeah,
you can spell
marsupials and placentals.
Can you explain to the people the difference between the two?
Okay, so you have two different types of mammals here, and these are geographically distinct, right? You get some in remote parts of the world which are completely unrelated to the others, yet they have similarities in terms of their traits and anatomical features, which to the untrained eye, you would say these two creatures are related, but it's actually, according to them, independent convergent evolution. It's not actually due to common ancestry, and that totally smashes this idea that similarities are due to common descent, because we have to remember everything goes back to concepts. So if similarities are due to common descent, that means that differences must be due to separate ancestry. And that means that if there's similarities that are found that are not due to common descent, then that undermines their entire thesis. This is something I, funnily enough, had a debate yesterday with Skydive Phil in the park, because they don't tell us about these probabilities. They don't tell us about the assumptions that they're making. Because the fact is, if you start off with assumptions, whatever conclusions you make are going to be based upon those assumptions. So a lot of these examples that you're actually giving, these examples only go on to highlight the assumptions that they have in the beginning, why they're erroneous. But even if, Muhammad, you never had these examples, it would not change the conclusions that we're currently arriving at.
Absolutely. And the basic difference between these two types of animals is, for example, kangaroos, they have the baby, they still hold it in the sack, and then it still feeds and comes back until it's ready to come out. While other animals will give birth, and the animal will be able to go by itself and after the birth is given, right? So that's the difference between these two types of animals. And they look the same. Now, the same book that I quoted, Biology by Ravens and Johnson, in the previous page, that said to us here that these homologous structures, they are evidence for common descent. The same book is giving you an image of animals that look exactly the same, but it claims that they're not for common descent. What bigger contradictions can you have reading this book? I don't know how people are opening these books, reading them, and they're not realizing, you know what, man, what's going on here? In the previous page, you are telling me the more they look similar, the more evidence that they are for common descent. The picture they give me later on is, they look exactly the same, but you know what? They're not actually from common descent, right? You've got all this picture that I put here, the picture next to it, showing you where they separated, right? So according to them, go ahead.
Yeah, no, just wanted to add to that point that the same problem that you just highlighted exists at the genetic level. You get sequences which are so similar.
Okay, okay. No worry, I've prepared for them beautiful things today. Don't worry, right?
MashaAllah.
So okay, moving on now. Like, first, they said to us what? Similarities are due to common descent. We give them an example that the homology doesn't work, and they're lying. And that's what most laymen, they think, these two things look the same. Therefore, that's what the guy was saying to me in the video if you watch it. They look the same, therefore they're from common descent. That's what laymen think it as evidence, right? Okay, so they say to us similarities are due to common descent. In the same book, they contradict themselves. Okay, moving on now. We said similarities are due to common descent. We've got this research from Nature showing you how they separated 160 million years ago, those two types of animals, and that they're not closely related because they separated a long time ago. Okay? So the question is, why are they homologous? They cannot find an explanation, so they make up a new thing. They call it convergent evolution. We've got the solution now. The answer to that question is actually, it's not just similarities that are due to common distance, but some animals, because of the environment, they will evolve to look like other animals, even though they're not from common ancestry. So which one is it? Are similarities due to common descent, or are animals based on their environment looking the same as other animals because the environment shaped them to be this way? Okay, the answer is, oh, some animals are like this, some animals are like that. Sorry, we found this problem, so now we're gonna make this new theory and we're gonna call it convergent evolution. There you go. Okay, now we move on. We say to them, okay, what about the bats and whales? They're not homologous in their anatomy, in their outside structure, and they are from different environments. The conclusion, according to what you said to me, because it's environment or structure, that they are closely related, right? Why are they similar according to your own testimony? Why are they similar? Why do they have this echolocation system, both of them functioning the same way in these two different things? One is a land animal, one is a sea animal. Now, can you explain this to me? Can you give us an explanation of how to kind of reconcile between these things? They said, oh yeah, there is actually a new type of convergent evolution that you'll find in this research down here, where actually you can get these type of similarities between animals, even though they're not from the same environment, and even though that they're not homologous in their shapes. So how long are you going to be moving the goalpost? You know, you took the goalpost with you home, literally. I don't know what you're going to do with the goalpost anymore, right? And we asked the question, why are animals similar to bats, living in similar environments, did not develop the ecosystem? Why is it only the whales that do that, while the animals that live around the same environments as the bats, and they are similar to it, did not develop that same echolocation system? Now, can you explain that to us? So what we see is what? They keep contradicting themselves every 2 seconds, right? Okay, is that it? No, that's not it. We're not done. Okay, let's move on. They got something that we call the cichlid fish. Cichlid fish it's a very interesting example. Why? Because it's not just two animals that look alike that you can explain. Oh, just similar environments. No. It's one fish, one animal that produces different species that are exactly identical to the same type of fish in a different lake in a different environment. So 2 minutes ago, you're telling to me there's something called convergent evolution that can explain two animals that look similar and this and that. Okay, what about now one producing different fishes in different environments, in different lakes that are almost identical? How can you explain that? How can you explain that by blind natural selection and blind processes that you claim are not directed and they happen by themselves because of evolution? The animals tries to survive, therefore it happens. So how can you explain this happening to us? What do they say? A new name, parallel evolution. Now, the answer to that question is that some of these fishes, there is something new called parallel evolution, and when parallel evolution happens, this takes place. But actually, the interesting thing that they said is that in that research, they said to you it's not just random blind natural selection, it is a guided one. That research I'm putting for you here in the Nature magazine, they will say to you, developmental bias and natural selection work together rather than selection being free to transverse over any physical possibility. It is guided along specific routes. My question is, guided by who? who's guiding this natural cell? They just put a fancy name, parallel evolution, and they say to you that it has to be guided, and they don't give you an explanation. Who's guiding it? Who's guiding that fish to produce the same exact species or almost identical to the same other fish that in a complete different location that you claim to us it is based on your environment, you have the evolution taking place? Come on, what are you guys saying? You know, I don't know how these people, subhanAllah, I don't know how these people they can come with a straight face and say to you evolution is facts. I seriously don't know. Okay, moving on. They have something called random mutations. What they claim is that mutations are random. This is a whole list here of research showing you how mutations are not random. Let's go through some of them, right? Let's go through some of them. Them telling you themselves, not by people who are creationists who believe in evolution, yeah? This research is in Nature, yeah? It's not by people who believe evolution is already true, okay? Let's go to showing you some of how these mutations that they claim to be random are nowhere near being random. Okay? If you open this, okay, let me share my screen. Give you one example. Okay? Research here published by Nature, okay? 791 citations. You can go into it. It talks to you about the origins of mutations and how they're not random. How they're not random mutations. Okay, so one example. Let me show you another example. Let me open this one. Sorry. Okay. Let me present my screen again. Okay. Okay. New study. Yeah. It's 2000 what? 2022. Okay, by Harry Baker. Okay, 2022. New study proves first, the claim first, but we're going to prove that now that it's now. I just showed you a research that is before it, like showing opposite to that. First evidence of non-random mutations in DNA. It's not the first, but this is the lie that they will bring for you. This is just recent research. Yeah, last year, literally, right? We're just in February. Okay. What else? Let me show you this. By the way, the same research that I just showed you, which is the research of the fish, cichlid fish. In that same research, they will say to you that here, I put it here, variation is not random. That they will claim to you that it's random. I already told you it's guided. So it's not random mutation. It's not blind natural selection. All of it is guided. It's not random. Okay. Let's see here. Let's watch this video of Dennis Noble. Who knows what Dennis Noble is? Do you know who Dennis Noble is, brother Sabur? Okay. You know, can you tell us just a brief?
Yeah.
We can even. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah. I'm just going to briefly describe him, but just before that, sorry, I keep muting myself, but I don't want to, because when someone, So
I appreciate it.
Yeah, with Dennis Noble, before I introduce him, I just wanted to say that I actually sent him a email because he's really into music and this type of thing. So I said to him that, here is something for you to listen to, and it's actually the call to prayer. It was actually a beautiful azan that someone did, and he was so moved by it. Right, so some of these academics, they're so much into dry, boring stuff that sometimes you have to just give them. You don't even have to give them like deep dawah. I just gave him this thing, and he listened to it. So anyway, about Dennis Noble. Dennis Noble is an anti-Darwinian evolutionist. Okay, now this is hard for people to believe. Like, what on earth is an anti-Darwinian evolutionist? He's basically someone that doesn't accept the modern synthesis. He doesn't accept this idea of neo-Darwinism and its many assumptions. He's actually said neo-Darwinism, in terms of most of his assumptions, has actually failed. And he is a professor at Oxford University. He's challenged Richard Dawkins to a debate, which he didn't actually accept. Dennis Noble, from my understanding, and this is on the public record as well, he's not a Christian, he's not a Muslim, he doesn't actually believe in any religion, yet he is somebody that is well respected. And as you pointed out, he's against this idea that random mutations along with selection can create the biodiversity that we actually have. He considers the mechanism to be insufficient, and therefore he's pushing out the ideas like the ones that you were just speaking of, by actually challenging the modern synthesis.
And I want to say one thing very important. He still believes in evolution. That's what I want people to keep in mind. We're not bringing you again. I said to you, I'm not going to bring you creationists. Yeah, so I can come and say to you, this guy is a creationist. Yeah? That's a well-respected academic, as he said in Oxford University, taught him and made different things. He invented even certain things, right? Certain I don't even have them now. If you just Google his name, you'll see he's inventing new things even that people are using in mathematical formats and this and that. You can go into the research that he's done and all the inventions that he made. But let's listen to what he says. Yeah, let's listen to what he says. Okay, let me share my screen, and it's a very, very quick and short and beautiful, as they say, video. Yeah. Okay. I want everyone to confirm if the voice you can hear the voice. Okay. Okay. So this is a conference that happened. It's an international conference that happened in China. Yeah, and he was speaking in that international conference. It happened in 2012. Okay. Let's just make sure that everyone is here.
Difficult, if not
okay, can people hear? I want to see is the people in the chat. If you can hear, I think they can hear, isn't it? Can everyone hear?
They should be able to, yeah.
Okay, let's play the video then. Okay, let's see what he says.
It's difficult, if not impossible, to find a genome change operator that is truly random in its action within the DNA of a cell. All careful studies of mutagenesis find statistically significant non-random patterns of change. So,
okay, he says what? All research. This is not a guy that is going to come out and say something that people are going to allow him to say, yeah? I want people to keep that in mind. He's saying all research, yeah? Put that in your mind very well, yeah? They all have patterns. There is no such thing as random mutations. If an idiot comes to you, assists you, there's random mutation, they just show him that video, yeah? So there's no such thing as random mutations. Okay, let's listen to what he says, yeah? Okay.
So my first conclusion is this. Not only is mutation not random, that was one of the essential assumptions of the neo-Darwinian synthesis, but proteins, at least some of them, did not evolve via gradual accumulation of mutations.
Okay, so he refutes what? He refutes gradual accumulation when it comes to proteins, and he refutes any idea called random mutations in the genes.
Yep.
So there is no such thing as random mutation. And as I said to you, any idiot comes to you and says to you there's random mutations, he's an idiot who did not study the research. And I put for you already links here. Yeah, you don't believe me? I just put you four links. A couple of them are from one of them is from Life Science. A couple of them from Nature. These are all accepted scientific magazines. All of them are of people who support evolution. Okay, it's not from creationists. Okay, now the question is that directed by who? Would they ever say directed by God? That's an impossibility in the scientific field. So what do they say? It's actually directed by cells. In the first research I showed to you here, I said to you by Nature, the first one, the claim is actually the cells are smart and intelligent, and that's how, prior to their creation, they already had these codes of how to be organized, and they started functioning on them after their creation. What an idiotic thing to say. Some others will say to you, it's microbes, actually. And they've invented a new term called microbial intelligence. You know what? These microbes are intelligent, and they know how to have these mutations. These mutations happening because microbes are smart. Another research says to you, by nature, it's bacteria. Bacteria is intelligent, and we've got intelligent bacteria, and that's how it's guided. What kind of... Who buys these things? Who literally listens to this nonsense and says the evolution is true? Who listens to this rubbish and says the evolution is true? Okay, let's move on from that. Let's move into the genes now, yeah? Let's go to the pool of the genes. We already spoke about random mutations and how it doesn't exist. Let's go a little bit to some research talking about genes and genetic similarities. This research I put here, right, which is by the National Library of Medicine.gov, right? Well accepted. There is no doubt about it. Everyone hears about it. 98.8% identical between human and chimpanzees. Everyone hears this research, right or wrong. If you speak to anyone in the basic, even laymen, if you go to them and you say to them that they're 99 or 98, they'll all say to you, yeah, they're 98 or 99% identical. The question is now, are humans and chimpanzees actually 98.8% identical? Is that claim true? Now, how do we understand this? By going into the methodology that these people use to come up with this conclusion of 98.8 identical. Now, and I want people to pay close attention with me. Yes.
Can I just say something just before we get into that? I just want everybody watching to just be aware of something, which is super important. Muhammad's going to go over the reasons why the comparison of 98% is misleading and is lying by omission, and this is well known and established. However, I want to give a counterfactual. What if it's not 98.8%? What if it's 100%, right? Or 99.999%, and they're not wrong? Similarities in of themselves do not prove anything. You need a transformation being done by a mechanism, and you need the origination probability being close to zero. Without these two things, even if the similarity was even closer than 98.8%, it would make no difference to the claim between human-chimp ancestry being true or it actually being false, because you need the background information to do that. So just as the upshot of what I'm saying is, similarities simply mean similarities. They don't mean anything else unless you have background assumptions.
Absolutely. And as a simple example I make to that guy, all iPhones look the same. They're from the same manufacturer. This is just because two things are identical does not change this idea that we don't want to go into specific details. Let's go to the genes now. Let's talk about the genes. Okay. So in that research, why is that research highly problematic? Or sorry, why is that conclusion highly problematic? I'm going to go into details now. First, you can open a book. It's called Bioinformatics and Functional Genomics. This is what is taught in universities, right? I'm not teaching. I'm not bringing you my own thing. This is what is taught in universities. If you go to the third edition, if you go to the third chapter, introduction, someone says I'm making this up. I'm giving you the reference. Okay, they say that two genes or proteins are homologous if they evolved from a common ancestor. So they say that they are homologous if we accept the assumption that they evolved from a common ancestor. That's what the book is saying. Okay. Now, when you go under the same book, there's a section called scoring metrics. Scoring metrics. The scoring metrics that they use in those studies. They say most database searching methods, such as BLAST, HMMER, there's many difference, depend in some form on the in some form on the evolutionary insight of the Dawah model. So they're saying to you, the systems that they're using to look for those similarities already assumes the evolution is true. Already assumes you and the chimpanzee are from common ancestors. Already assumes that your genes are homologous. Before doing the search, it already assumes. So it moves from humans and chimpanzees are homologous if we consider them from a common ancestor to humans and chimpanzees are homologous, therefore they are from a common ancestry. The same idea of the circle reasons that I displayed earlier when it comes to the vestigial organ. The same type of nonsensical things. This is a bit confusing, but I will explain it when I go into the research. I'll give an example. Point is, it's no longer an assumption, it's evidence. They already assume that it is the case before they do the research. Rather than doing the research to come to the conclusion that it is true or not, they already assume it's true, and they use the methods that assumes it's true to prove what they already believe. That's the point that I'm trying to make. Okay, so in this study, why was it problematic? First, they used 3 million genes out of 3 billion. So literally 1 out of 1,000 genetic codes only in that research. Now, within 1 out of 1,000 in that research that they use, they ignored 28% differences and 7% differences between humans and chimpanzees, which is actually 35%. So if we were to take that 35%, it's why 65% similarities now already. And given the fact that we only taken 3%, 3 million out of 3 billion of the genetic codes. So first, they're ignoring majority of the genes, number one. Number two, they're excluding that which they don't like, which is 28% and 7 differences. And they say in the same study why they excluded it. They say we excluded it because there's no similarities. Oh, you don't say, So that which is not similar, you ignore, and you bring that which is similar, and you claim that there's identicality, 98.8. And now they do this beautiful, very beautiful, nice things that they call deletion, substitution, and insertion. And in every, it is between 1 to 65 codes in the sequence that they will do deletion, substitution, and insertion in. And I will explain what deletion and substitution and insertion in. We're going to go into that. Okay? And I want to say I want to make a very important point. Here, the research that I put in Scientific American, if you just search hidden treasures in junk DNA, right? They used to have this stupid belief that there's something called junk DNA and it's useless and all of that. Richard Dawkins and these people were talking about it. And today we know this is nonsense. And all types of genes are useful and important for the human being. Okay? Now, the important thing is this, is that changing one gene, one genetic code in certain situation can be fatal. You can die. You cannot exist as a human being. Right? Now, the point is they're claiming thousands, if not millions, of changes in these studies, but they ignore them. They do insertion, deletion, substitution. They ignore all of these different things, right? And they substitute, literally, they change, they delete certain genetic codes. They delete them. Even though, as I said to you, one of them can be fatal. They delete them in order for them to push this narrative that is actually 98.8% identical. Okay? So this is the nonsense that they do to come up to this conclusion, 98.8. Is that it? No. Right? What they did in that study, they ignored all the insertion and deletion that they did. And they only left the substitution. So they ignored all the percentages that they did insertion and deletion in them. They completely ignored them. And they only put what they did substitution. So what do you mean by substitution and insertion and deletion? Let me explain. And why are we saying that they use methods that already assume evolution? So look here, if you can see in the picture that I have, the image that I have. First, we have the chimp, right? So let's assume these genes that I have on the top are the genes of the chimp. Okay? And let's look down here, we have the human. So the genes between the chimp and the human are completely different. Can you see, Brother Sabur? Starts with C, and then it's even longer, right? As I said to you. So it starts with C. This one starts with T. It doesn't start with C, right? This one ends with G. This one ends with A. You can go on. There's many differences between the two. So what they do when they use these methods that already assume evolution, they assume that there is a common ancestor, and then they add this type of genes in the middle that they brought from their pocket, right? That has no evidences for it, and they assume that this is a common ancestor between the human and the chimp. Yeah, so they bring additional data that there is no evidence for, and what they do now is that they use that as evidence to align between the chimp and the human. So if they found extra genes that I said to you, they can either do deletion, so they'll completely remove the C and the A. If they find there's a difference between the C and the T, they will do what we call substitution. They will change the T into a C or the C into a T, and they will claim that there is a similarity there. Or they will do insertion. If there is more down and there is less in the top, let's add one more gene on the top and let's add one other gene in the end, so we can have the same identical process. So what did they do? They do this insertion, deletion, and substitution. And this is the problem. They've already assumed that we evolved from the same common ancestor. That's why they add this selection of genes in the middle. And that's why they use it as a stick to combine or to explain the differences that are between us and them. And as I said to you, if you remove one gene, in certain cases, you can die. So they're removing thousands and millions of genes, depending on how big the study is. So they're not only doing all of this nonsense to come up to this conclusion, but they're ignoring all the other studies that says otherwise. So when you come to anyone, they'll say to you, it's 98.8. Here, same magazines, PNAS, these are world-renowned magazines, okay? 98%, the difference is actually 96%. Actually, it's 95%. No, actually, it's 77%. Actually, it's 70%. The question is, why are they all different? The answer is simple. They're all using different methods. One is using BLAST, one is using BLAST, one is using HHMER, one is doing more insertion than the other, one is using more deletion than the other. If we were actually 98%, this is what science is, brother Sabur, right? It is experiment, repeatability, and falsification, right? If we were actually 98.8, every study that is done will come with the conclusion that we're 98.8. This is how science works. And then we will say that actually this is a scientific reality, that we are 98.8. But because of this nonsense that they're doing, and because of all of these different methods, the games that they're playing, they're coming up with different conclusions. They're ignoring any other research that would say less. And they're doing all of these games of insertion, deletion, substitution. And there's many other terms. I just brought 3 because I don't want to bore you with the amount of nonsense that they do when they try to pick the genes that look like each other and the genes that do not look like each other. Okay? You want to say something before I move on?
No. You know, the point that you're raising here, I think, because some people, they'll look at these particular pictures, they'll look at the insertions and the deletions and the different numbers you're going over, and they'll get confused. But I think a way to summarize it is they are subjective in how they come to their conclusions. They can pick and choose what they want. And because of that, that's why you have all these discrepancy. And even if these discrepancies...
not just pick and choose, they change.
Yes,
substitution. They completely change the genetic makeup. And so sorry, go ahead. So that's very important. It's not just picking and choosing. That's different. Yeah,
it's super important. And what we have to realize about whenever it comes to any comparison between the human genome and the chimpanzee genome, the scientist who's studying the human genome and the chimpanzee genome, and they're doing the studies, take the names of each one of these scientists who are putting together these papers and interview them before, let's just say hypothetically, before they did the experiments, and ask them, do you believe in human chimp ancestry? Every single one of them will say yes. So the thing is, it's a foregone conclusion. They already believe it. And it's just about fitting the data to make it appear that the similarity is less or more than they previously thought. So
Absolutely.
no one's, and this is super important, brothers and sisters. Nobody's coming to the evidence from a perspectiveless perspective. They already have it clear in their head that universal common ancestry is true. And therefore, they are not objectively coming to this data. They are simply coming to it with their what's known as theory ladenness in philosophy of science, and that's why these conclusions are absurd. They're simply absurd.
That's what they're taught in universities, brother Sabur.
Yeah.
They're already taught as students. It is that's what I'm saying. Why am I building up with all of that? Because they already taught this is a reality, this is a fact. So whatever method they use, that's why I opened their own textbooks and what they teach in their own universities, is they already use these methods. If you open this research I showed you, they use BLAT. If you open a science research with the same exact percentage, but different types of genes, they apply the same method, but they're also using BLAST. Again, they're using all of these different methods that already assume the truth of evolution, and they add all of these different data. Like, for example, to simplify very simply to any layman, if I say Muhammad ate camel meat, what they would do is that because they want these two statements to be identical, Muhammad ate camel meat, camel ate Muhammad meat. They want these two statements to be identical. So what they're going to do is they're going to change camel with Muhammad in the position, and they're going to do substitution, and they will change the positions, or they will do deletion of Muhammad. They will put camel in there, and do a deletion of the other camel, and they put Muhammad in there to come up with the same conclusion, even though these two statements are completely contradictory. Right? Muhammad ate camel meat and camel ate Muhammad meat is complete opposite, right? But they will do with these methods now to simplify, very simple for the people, right? Rather than doing all of this, they will do substitution, insertion, deletion, and they will say to you, look, it is 100% identical now. It is actually 99% identical. By this method, I can make anything 100% identical. Literally. I can make any gene between any human and anything is 100% identical. That's why you have this banana and human being 50% similarities, because of the methods that they use. It just depends on which method that they use to come into similarities between these two different things. And you can say any amount that you want to say, 96, 95, 77, 70, whatever you like, you can say.
Yeah, and an additional point that I want everybody to just keep in mind is that before Darwin, there was Carl Linnaeus. Carl Linnaeus was a Swedish scientist who put together taxonomy the way that we have it, in terms of all these different organisms being put together in these categories. And he put humans and chimpanzees together because of their similarities in anatomy, but he didn't believe they had a common ancestor. So it's pretty bloody obvious that things are similar, but that doesn't mean they have a common ancestor. And the other thing to keep in mind, and this is something that atheists, they pull out as if it's some sort of miracle. They say, well, if humans and chimpanzees are not related, why are their genomes similar? And the answer to that is, why wouldn't their genomes be similar? Because they are anatomically similar. We would expect their genomes to be similar.
Absolutely. It is the same. What I was saying before about the vestigial organs, right? It is already the assumption that evolution is true, and the organ can be only useful if it is for survival and reproduction. But Allah Azza wa Jalla says, وَلَكُمْ فِيهَا جَمَالٌ حِينَ تُرِحُونَ وَتُسْرِحُونَ وَحِينَ تَسْرَحُونَ. Allah says in these animals you have beauty. Allah, I can accept with you that they're completely useless for survival and reproduction, and still there's a purpose. Purpose is beauty. Allah created it in that way for the beauty, for them to look more beautiful, for them to look more amazing. So even if I were to steal man their argument and accept that they're not useful for survival and reproduction, we can find an alternative explanation, right?
Yeah. And also, I just wanted to add a beautiful point related to what you said, because what you said is absolutely beautiful. When it comes down to the points that they're making, they cross over from biology into theology. Okay,
I'm gonna come to that. I'm gonna come to that. No, as I said to you, I've prepared.
MashaAllah, no, you did
a huge meal for them.
MashaAllah.
So they're satisfied in
that. And I need to get this presentation. This is beautiful.
I'll send it to you, inshallah. I'll send it to you, inshallah. I'll send it to you. As I say, it's a quick one. I could have gotten more detail, but I don't want to bore the people, I don't want to
bore the people. you know, these presentations, Muhammad, they're very important, because whenever we're talking to atheists, we need to have them ready. We need to have these references ready. We need
to have these That's why I have them ready. Yeah. I have them ready. The links, whenever they come to you, they claim that there's random mutation. Already slap them with research showing that there's no random mutation, and then slap them with the video that I showed you, and that's the end of it, right? You don't need to debate too much with that. They come to you with the fossil record. I want people to this is a very important point. They will come to you. Where's the evidence for evolution? They will say to you the fossil record. You just said a word. What in the fossil record is evidence for what you say? That's what you're supposed to ask. You've got to peel one layer back. Say it to them. What is evidence? They'll say, oh, these things in museums, which is all Lucy and all of the all of these things. In the National Museum, I think here in London, they're showing you all of these pelves of the whale. And they say to you, these are vestigial organs. This nonsense I'm showing you, this is what they're using in these magazines, these fictional type of skeletons that they're putting there, right? And they come to the layman who doesn't know anything about evolution. They come with this nonsense. So we have to be prepared as believers, you know? Okay, let's move on, inshallah. Now, we've done now with this everything which I would call scientific. I've demonstrated. Now, what did I do? Let's go back to the beginning. What did I do? I've demonstrated that whatever they call fossil record or evidence for evolution is in reality evidence against them. Right? So we've demonstrated the fossil record is actually evidence against evolution. We put forward the Cambrian explosion. We put forward how these species are actually evolving in very quick periods, and how it's impossible for it to happen on a long period. If it's not on a long period of time, it's impossible. And how the Cambrian explosion completely refutes this idea. I put forward all of the fabrication, not all, by the way, that I can go on and on, by the way, just some 13 only links of some of the fabrications that they put forward to try to support the fossil record. Okay, so we move on from the fossil record. Vestigial organs, we put forward how these are all lies. These organs are not vestigial. How it's even circular reasoning that you don't even take that into consideration to begin with, because it assumes already evolution is true. And when we say, why do you assume evolution is true? They will say to you the fossil record. You go to the fossil record, they will go to you to vestigial organs. So you have to be very careful with these people, because they jump from one to another. So you refute all of them to make them very clear that, okay, there is no evidence for what you're calling evidence, right? Homology and blind natural selection. We showed that homology is not evidence. It's actually the opposite, as we showed with the cichlid fish. We showed how natural selection is not blind, and it is guided, and they're not giving us an explanation how it is guided. Right? We showed that there is no such thing as random mutations. We showed research from their magazines, from their own beliefs, how there is no such thing as random mutation. We showed how similarities in genetic makeup is made up. Okay, how similarities in genetic makeup is a concept that is made up. So the question is now, why do I get certain people trying to say, let's harmonize evolution and Islam? Bro, harmonize what? What theory of evolution do you want to harmonize? Which one? Which type of evolution do you want to harmonize? Which nonsense that they said that they took, that they changed, that they want to harmonize? This whole theory is a bunch of garbage that is put on top of each other. If you have a trash can, why would I harmonize a trash can with Islam? And this is very important. What they try to take away is the acceptance in the heart of the believer. You know, before all of this nonsense of evolution, if we go to the 1800s and we go to a layman, we say to him, look at the trees, look at the ants, look at these animals, how their evidence is for God. None of them would object. None of them they would say, yeah, that makes sense. Okay, all of these things are evidence. There has to be a maker that guided them to do that. That's why Fir'aun, when he asked Musa alayhi salam, قال ما ربكما يا موسى, who's your Lord, O Moses? قال ربنا الذي أعطى كل شيء خلقه ثم هذا. Allah is the one who has given everything its shape of creation, its creation, and then guided it. Allah is the one who's given everything its shape, its creation, and then guided it. This is the Lord that we worship. Why is evolution being put forward? Because it goes against this idea, this natural, innate thing in the human being. To when he looks around, he knows there has to be a creator and maker for all of that, right? So what did we do today? We showed how this whatever rubbish nonsense that they're calling evidence, it is not evidence for them, rather it is evidence for against them, and they have to explain to us who guided these mutation, these genetic things that are not random mutations, how these mutations, guided mutations, directed mutations happening, how this natural selection happening in different environments or organized, how it's happening, why the all of these species evolved quickly and not on a prolonged period of time, how are they evolving and all of these changes are happening in the body, and there is no one controlling them. You have to explain all of that, and you have to give us an explanation. Now, it is on them to explain these things to us. And as I said to you, if I'm speaking with someone who believes in evolution, I'm not going to go into all of these. It is too much for him. I'm just going to say, why do you believe in evolution? You know, start showing me your evidence, your research, and one by one, what he's presenting, I'm going to refute, right? This is a simple way to deal with it, okay? So that's what we established now. Now, moving on to what we call, it's a very important thing that we need to keep in mind now, the rational problems with this idea of evolution, right? And by the way, I'll put number 2 as number 1, but I changed them. I'm going to start with number 2 then instead of number 1. Okay. The theory, or no, sorry, number 1 is the correct thing. Yeah, number one is the correct thing. Number one or number, they're very similar in the explanation of what I want to say. So yeah, number two. Let's start with number two. Okay, number two, it is not falsifiable. The theory of evolution is not science. Right? So it's linked to the first point that I want to make. Right? That is pseudoscience. They're linked. The theory of evolution is not science. You cannot falsify the theory of evolution. Why? I've already demonstrated 2 examples in this tree. I've demonstrated to you whenever there's something that comes up that goes against whatever they believe, they change it. They change the goalpost. They come up with a new name, a made-up name, to try to explain whatever happened. Which means that there is nothing in that theory that is falsifiable to begin with. And this is a huge rational problem. That makes it's not science to begin with. Why? Because they rely on the presuppositions of naturalism. Everything has to be explained through natural processes. They don't accept that there could be anything unnatural, metaphysical, that explains the phenomena that happens. Based on that false assumption that they already started with, the theory, it cannot be falsified. I already showed you that with the circuit fish. I've already showed you that with the fossil record. How when the Cambrian explosion happened, they change it. How the homology, when we show them that homology is not due to common ancestor, they change it. How we show them it's not due to environment, they change it. They change the name. Every evidence that they will put forward, they will change, and they will claim as if the theory is still valid. All they're going to say, oh, look, some of them happens this way. You didn't explain anything. You didn't bring evidence for anything. So anything which you will try to put forward against evolution is not falsifiable, which by default disqualifies evolution from being a scientific theory, because evolution is not a scientific theory to begin with. Evolution in its crux, in its understanding, it's not a scientific theory. Why? Because it's pseudoscience. It is not something that you can see, you cannot observe. I cannot observe species changing from one another. It cannot happen. And they claim because of gradualism, we already refuted this idea of gradualism, but they will still use it as evidence. Oh yeah, okay. Because of gradualism, you cannot see. Okay, you claim that there are some species who can evolve quickly. Why we're not seeing them today? Why are no species today evolving quickly so we can observe them and see the changes that take place? Right? So it is pseudoscience because it's not under the scientific method. It's not under experimentation, repeatability, and falsification. I cannot experiment under a species that is changing from one to another. I cannot repeat the experiment, and I cannot falsify the theory, because whatever you come up with, you will claim it is something else. And it's all based on pseudoscience, like I showed you. All of this idea of Homo habilis, Homo erectus, all of that, they have like chapters of stories. Oh, the Homo habilis was walking in this part of the region, he met the Homo. All of these fictional stories they have, it's pseudoscience, not science. That's not how science is conducted. You don't find a tooth and then say that this creature existed and he was walking, he was mating, and he was in this region based on finding a tooth. That's not science. That is now using, you can call it philosophy, call it whatever you want. But the theory of evolution is not a scientific theory to begin with. That's something that we need to look into. And whatever science that they're using is already refuted, right? So this is the first two ideas that I'm putting forward. And this is very important. The reason behind the demonstration that we put forward is to make this idea clear in the minds. If something is unfalsifiable, you cannot ask me to falsify it to begin with. That's why you have to ask them for the evidences for them claiming it is true to begin with. Because all of the evidences are refuted and they're all manipulated. So if I have a building that is falling apart, you cannot focus on which part of the rocks that are problematic. The whole building is falling apart. And if there is no evidences for it, it's not science to begin with. That's why whenever you go to one thing, they will move on to a different thing, to a third thing, a fourth thing, right? Now, another thing is the idea of randomness. We've already refuted there is no blind natural selection or random mutation. But the idea of randomness itself, randomness doesn't exist. Randomness doesn't exist in reality. You cannot prove to me that randomness exists. Randomness is basically the lack of our explanation. If I flip a coin, it's not 50-50%. I just do not know how much pressure I'm putting in. I do not know the gravity. I do not know which side I'm pushing the coin. If I were to know all of these factors, then there is no such thing as randomness. Therefore, the whole theory is based on randomness. And we've refuted already the pillars of randomness, random mutation, and all of that. And if idea of randomness itself is wrong, you cannot base your theory on something which doesn't make any sense, because nothing is random. Everything is happening in a causal chain according to your beliefs if you're a naturalist. So you cannot pick and choose and claim I'm a naturalist when it comes to this part. But when it comes to this part, I'm not going to accept naturalism. I'm going to claim that there is this hidden force that is called chance and randomness, right? So there's no such thing as called randomness. The whole theory is built on assumptions. As we said, the tree of life is based on the genes and homology. And we showed that the genes and homology have nothing, are not evidences for anything. Homology is not evidences for common ancestry, and the genes are not similar as they claim that they are. So where this whole idea of tree of life come from? It all falls apart. Abiogenesis, it is an assumption they cannot explain. Where is the start of? I didn't even go into that. I can go into details. I don't want to. Right? Where is the start of all of that? Where is the start of the? How did carbon start to grow in hands and leg, and hands and legs started walking, and we've got what we have today? You wanted to say something, Brother Sabur? Yeah. Can unmute because you're muted.
Yeah, but your flow, man, your flow is good. I don't want to mess around with it.
Okay. Khalas. And the last thing I want to end up is this: is the idea of the change, or the one before the last, the idea of the changes in science, right? They would claim that all of these changes, all of these articles that you provided, is evidences for us because it shows how science is changed. This is the biggest nonsense that they will come up with, right? That's why I left it as the last point. Never accept this garbage from them. This is true if you have already pillars, foundations of the theory that are undisputable. And then you've got branches that sometimes happen that needs explanation that you might explain in an evidential way. That's what science is. Do not make them come and break the whole thing is nonsense. And because science is changing, we're going to change the nonsense every day, a bit by bit. And this is science. Do not be fooled by that, Muslims, right? Because this is a very common nonsense that they will come up with. They will come and say, this is science and science is changing. That's why. No, Habibi. It's not that. It is that you got no evidence to begin with. You got no foundation of the theory. You've got nothing that is well established so we can base on it the theory and then look of explaining certain things to begin with. So never accept this nonsense of what they would call changes of science, right? Mm-hmm. And let's go now to the last thing, inshallah. Okay, the last thing I want to say is how those people explain what they say. You've got someone like Richard Dawkins who would try to explain abiogenesis by aliens. I want to just highlight the psyche of these individuals, right? Why do I want to highlight the psyche of these individuals? Some people will come and say, why, if you've got all of this evidence, why don't you win the Nobel Prize, man? Just go and demonstrate all of this and win the Nobel Prize. The reason is those people already believe it and they don't want to believe in anything else. Evolution to them equals no creation. And because evolution to them equals no creation, they will fight with everything to try to prove their nonsense. Because they don't want to believe in God, and many of them believe science is against religion. Many of them are from Christian backgrounds. They've had bad experiences in their religion. Generally, they don't want religion. They want to move away from religion. They already have this assumption, so they would accept aliens. Someone like Richard Dawkins would accept aliens over accepting that there is a creator, an intelligent maker of the universe. They would not accept that. They would accept things like intelligent matter. This article that I put by Science, they try to attribute intelligence, choice to matter. They would attribute intelligence and choice to matter, but they would not attribute it to the creator of matter. Why? Because they're coming from the presupposition of naturalism. That's why you can never disprove these people, because they will always say to you the only explanation we accept is the natural explanation. They will come from the hidden assumption. They will go to the extent of accepting aliens, accepting matter to be intelligence, cells, microbes, viruses, all of these things are intelligence, and that's how we have mutations, that's how we have the first cell, that's how we have things happening in the universe. They will use anything except a creator that created all of that guided all of that. And now the last thing I want to show is this documentary, The Expelled, right? I genuinely want people, anyone who's doubting that there is a specific agenda happening because of evolution in the scientific community, that they're pushing away anyone who goes against them, anyone who's got this idea, that anyone who tries to use God or creationism and evolution or deny any of these things, anyone who've got any doubt that this is not happening, watch this documentary. It's available on YouTube. Actually, let me open it. I'll just watch. This is the beginning of it, maybe. Hopefully we didn't get copyrighted or anything like that. I don't think we will, right? But let's just watch this, just the beginning of this.
If we're commenting on it, we won't get a strike.
Yeah, we are commenting, isn't it?
Yeah.
We are genuinely commenting, actually. So
well, alhamdulillah, I know some of the people who are in the documentary, so I'm sure they won't.
Subhanallah.
Yeah,
alhamdulillah.
I'm sure they
okay,
won't, yeah.
Let's play just a part of it, not much. Okay.
Yeah.
So here's the documentary. It's called Expelled. No intelligence allowed. Okay. Just watch it. Don't accept my word for it. Just watch what they say. I want to move on from the music.
Is only one skirmish in a much larger war.
Science simply makes no use of the hypothesis of God.
Ask yourself, what has intelligent design given us? Nothing.
We cannot accept intelligent design as an alternative scientific theory.
They will never accept that we have a better argument. They just pester us and they waste our time.
Now I'm gonna leave you on that cliffhanger. You know, I'm gonna leave you guys on that cliffhanger. Seriously, watch that. If you really want to see if those people are genuine in the research and what they do. You already heard some of their statements. Yeah, watch that. Look how those people, no matter what, they're not gonna accept any alternative explanations, right? And I rest my case. You know?
Absolutely, mashallah. That was a very beautiful presentation. And the reason I didn't want to interrupt you is because I've done presentations before, and someone interrupts your flow, you forget where you are, and you know it stops things.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So, I mean, one of the things, Muhammad, which is very interesting about the way that you presented, is that there is a lack of trust now from the general public. If they were to take what the information that we have here and process it properly, there's a lack of trust with what some of these Darwinists are saying, because essentially there is so much shoehorning, there's so much reverse engineering, there's so much ad hoc rationalization. The fact is, sometimes we just got to get to the root of the issue. The root of the issue is they've already assumed Darwinism to be true from the onset. They've just assumed it to be true. That's why when it comes to similarities between the two genomes, rather than being honest and saying one genome is bigger than the other, we can't really do a right sort of comparison, they just make all these assumptions and deletions and substitutions and say, hey, look at this similarity, without telling us what that similarity means, because similarity in and of itself doesn't mean anything. And likewise, randomness. The evidence, you know, you gave the good example of Dennis Noble, but we have James Shapiro with natural genetic engineering, who's speaking about how most of the mutations are not actually random, they're actually directed by the organism itself. So then you have people like Lynn Margulis, you have people like Masatoshi Nai, so many atheist scientists who are coming out and saying this is garbage, it doesn't make sense. Then you have atheist academics like Jerry Fodor, who you know, in his book What Darwin Got Wrong, he spoke about the pressure in academia to conform, the pressure not to challenge Darwinism, and he's an atheist. Likewise, you have Thomas Nagel, another atheist philosopher, who speaks about how Darwinism has created Darwinism within academia has created a situation where you can't really question it. And I think the real issue here is whether you look at the data or you look at the scientists themselves, this is not a normal theory. This is not the way that science normally operates. There's something very dark about this theory, and there's and that particular aspect of it you only really start to understand when you understand that Darwinism feeds into atheism and atheism feeds into Darwinism. They have this relationship, and that is absolutely key. One last thing I just wanted to add is please go back and watch the stream, and when Muhammad's giving his presentation on the various different issues, pay attention and take notes. For example, one of the things he mentioned right at the beginning was about gradualism, right? And why gradualism is so important. According to Darwinism, if things didn't work in numerous slight successive modifications, khalas, that's the end of Darwinism. You have to have gradualism. As he showed, you actually don't have gradualism. You have punctuated equilibrium. You have Cambrian explosion.
That's the new fancy term. By the way, I had a list of all of the evolution, all of the new terms. I didn't bring it. I forgot. There's a whole list I made of all of the lances, new names, Evo, Devo, evolution. All of these new lances that they brought. Just trying to explain. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely, because they're basically trying to fill up the hole. And you know, gradualism is to Darwinism what Tawheed is to Islam. If you take out Tawheed, there's no Islam. If you take out gradualism, which in the fossil record doesn't exist, as Stephen Jay Gould pointed out, gradualism is not what you see, then that is sufficient to debunk Darwinism. Everything else is not important after you've already debunked it using that. But each one of those things, whether it comes to the problems in terms of how they work with genetics, or whether it's sociobiology and the problems with evolutionary psychology, it's wrong every single time. So Jazakallah khair, Muhammad. The presentation was fantastic. What I want everybody to do is to learn from this presentation, spread this knowledge, because fundamentally we want people to believe in Allah. And the strongest evidence for the existence of Allah is found within nature. Now, we as human beings, we have a fitrah. That's why we believe in Allah. That's why an atheist calls out upon Allah, even if they're on a ship and they've never been taught about dua. However, what awakens the fitrah is actually things like the design argument. And we should be happily using the design argument. We shouldn't be shy about it. We should be confident in using it. Because
I want to
actually,
say like, something important in the design argument is this is the most used argument in the Quran.
Yeah.
Because it appeals. This is something that some people neglect. It's not just the idea of your ranking of what is a better argument, but the idea is that what the Quran used the most, because this is what appeals the most to the natural human nature of the human being, right?
That's
and
right.
What happens? Why are we not using it? Because of evolution, right? So the point is, we need to stop doing that. What we need to do is to challenge those who would, if we use an argument and they bring forth evolution, we need to challenge this idea to show them they're brainwashed to believe in what they believe in.
That's
and
right.
that actually, no,
That's right.
things are designed. Things are not just designed, they're perfected. They are perfected by the Creator, right? Sorry,
Absolutely. No, absolutely. That's exactly the way I would say it. And confidence is extremely important here. And where does confidence come from? Confidence doesn't come from just prepping yourself up, getting yourself into a state, or going to the gym. Confidence comes from knowledge. Confidence comes from practice. Confidence comes from opposing the other side, looking at their arguments and refuting those arguments. And confidence is something contagious, because once people see, wait a minute, this guy's using design argument, he's not getting refuted, he's refuting the other side, they start using it. And ultimately what we need to realize is that shaitan is using certain things to try and take people away from Allah. And one of the things I truly believe shaitan's been using over the last 150 years is Darwinism.
Yeah,
and the link between Darwinism and Masonry.
I don't think there's a doubt about that.
No,
I don't think there's any doubt.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting is that when we look at the way that this theory scares the crap out of people, right? Certain people, they're like, no, I don't want to talk about this, yeah? But it's really, I mean, the analogy you can think of is like this, right? There's an extremely scary looking dog, right? It looks like a Mongolian lion, right? It's got these, huge face, hair all over the place, 300 pounds. However, every day you come out of your house, this dog starts barking, you run back inside. That's what Darwinism's like for some people.
Absolutely.
However, one day, if you just walk out of your house and you let the dog attack you, you realize it doesn't have any teeth, right? It's toothless, right? That's exactly Darwinism. It doesn't have any teeth. It doesn't have the power that it
you
claims.
You actually realize it's not a dog at all. You've been hearing a noise, but it's not there.
It's a chihuahua.
You were scared to come out. Yeah, exactly. That's it.
It's a chihuahua. It's a chihuahua. Yeah. So, Brother Muhammad, you came to the studio late to come to do the stream. I don't want to hold you back. Jazakallah khair. Is there any last message you want to give to the people before we end?
Well, what I want to give to the people is let's have what we call beneficial knowledge, right? So let's actually not be sitting down for 1 hour, 14 minutes, listening for the sake of listening. Let's actually try to do some research, opening the links that I have already put forward for these things, looking into these issues in more detail and understanding, right? Mm-hmm. I've summarized for you the problems. I've summarized for you the evidences of how to refute. I've given you the links, right? You literally don't have to do anything. You just have to understand the points that I was making. That's why right. These problems are problems, and why are these the pillars of the theory to begin with? So there is no theory without them, right? Once you understand that, khalas, you've done it, right? And I think Brother Sabur is tired. Some people asking any questions. No, Brother Sabur is tired. He's not going to take any questions now.
I mean, I would do the stream longer, but I've got work tomorrow morning.
Absolutely,
that's the problem.
Absolutely.
But Muhammad, I love your stuff. Keep up the good work, mashallah. I'm very happy. I need to come down to Leicester Square and join you. I need to watch you in action, inshallah. Inshallah. And, one of the things I think which is important for young people to realize is when you equip yourself with information, you will have more confidence. Sometimes people ask, why are these people confident? Why is Muhammad Ali confident? Why is it? It's the confidence doesn't come genetically. The confidence comes from education. You know,
Absolutely.
you spent a few hours putting together this presentation, but it wasn't a few hours, Muhammad. It was actually a lot of work you did previously, and you were just
Absolutely.
summarizing it. Do you understand?
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
you
Absolutely.
know, and how much, I mean, for the people, how much work do you put in, like, you know, when it comes to these types of things? Do you basically set aside a certain time of the day where you do research? How do you work it out?
Me personally,
Yeah.
wallahi, I've got a specific time of the day, right? Or then let's not just say one, because it depends on what I'm doing. Like, for example, there's a specific time for Quran, for example, right? And there's a specific time for reading a specific book, and then there is a specific time for general research on all of these different topics, right? Atheism, etc., science and cosmology, all of these issues, right? Point is, if you have a system, you stick to the system. Like, for example, if I have after Fajr, I'm gonna do my Quran revision, right? Which includes tafsir, for example. If I'm doing it for 30, 40 minutes, then every day I'm doing it for 30, 40 minutes. Right? I'm not asking you to have the biggest. You can be working and do the system that I'm doing, by the way, right? Because I'm doing, I'm doing so many things, right? Point is, it's not that you don't have time. It is that you're wasting your time on the wrong things.
Absolutely,
You're spending,
bro.
yeah. And I just say to the people, just open your phone, click screen time. Screen time is an answer to how much rubbish you're reading on a daily basis, or probably listening to things which are not important, right? Especially if it's in this TikTok and this nonsense, right? So, point is this: just make a system for yourself. 1.5 hour a day. Simple, right? If all of us can have 1.5 hour a day, I doubt that no one doesn't have 1.5 hour a day. Keep it after prayers, so you remember, you don't lose the time. Keep it after prayers, okay?
Yeah.
Let's say half an hour after Fajr, half an hour after Asr, half an hour after Isha. But stick to them. Stick to them. Don't say, I've got this thing to do, therefore I'm going to ignore my 30 minutes of today, and I'm going to do this thing. This is where we got our issues, right? Is the commitment. So, wallahi, 30 minutes will go so much. Will go so much. You will finish books upon books, and the more you read, the more quicker you read. You'll finish books upon books. You will finish a complete amount of research. If you memorize the Quran, you'll be memorizing the whole Quran. If you stick to that. This is my method. This is what my teachers have taught me. Just have a specific time of the day. It's all about commitment. If you commit to it, you will get the benefit. The problem what some people do is that they want, this is what this age of technology have taught us. You want maximum amount of knowledge in the shortest amount of time. This is what people started to have in their mind. I want in 2 hours, now I understand everything. I want to read this book, and now I'm able to do da'wah. Right? Some people ask me, which book do you recommend so I can do da'wah? Brother, it's not you open the door, you close the door. It's not like this, right? And that's what our teachers taught us. It takes time. Do not look at the mount. Look, mount is a mountain, but if you start taking one rock by one rock, the mountain is gone before you know it. Don't look at the mountain and try to move the full mountain. This is what people do. They want to get the so much knowledge in short amount of time, and when they don't, they give up. If you're consistent and you spend a small amount of time, like Allah Azza wa Jalla said, the most beloved deeds to Allah are small, but they're consistent. Even if they're small, but they're consistent. The consistency is key. If you're doing the consistency, you will get the knowledge. Right? It doesn't matter how busy you are. You've got 1.5 hours in your day to do what I'm telling you.
Absolutely. That's the best advice. Allah loves those things which are consistent, even if they're small. So Jazakallah khair, the Muslim Lantern, Muhammad Ali, for joining me on this live stream at short notice, I would say. And
No problem,
until next
inshallah.
time, I'd love to have you back again, inshallah, for
Inshallah,
something else in the
inshallah.
future, inshallah.
Inshallah.
So
akhi kareem,
Jazakallah
inshallah.
khair. May Allah reward you.
Ameen ya
Assalamu
Rabbi.
alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Barakallah feek.